Well, hey guys, welcome to today's video. In today's tutorial, we're going to talk about wintertime plant propagation. How we do it, how you can do it, and how it's really not that difficult at all. We're going to talk about the medium that we use and kind of what our technique is, and you're probably going to find that this is pretty simple. So let's talk wintertime plant propagation. Now, just to give you an idea of what I mean when I say wintertime plant propagation, this is just a dish pan right here. You can get these from dollar store, Walmart, wherever. We use dish pans, and we do that because they're portable. You can move them around easily, and they'll hold somewhere between a 70 and 100 cuttings, just depending on how close you put them, what kind of plants you're propagating, and things of the like. So this is an old one, and what we're going to do this year is we're going to redo all of our dish pans. So you can just see this is kind of a weedy mess here, but we've got some Murray cypress. It's the first year I've ever tried to propagate any of these, and these have done well over summer and they've rooted. So we'll look forward to growing some of these out for next year. But that being said, all of our old dish pans, they've just gotten kind of rickety and they're just sun-baked and they're full of weed seeds, and they've turned into a mess. And we really need to redo these, put new medium in them. And I don't know how many years we've been using this, but a lot of years, 7 or 8 years or so. So we're going to redo it. And our process for that's really easy. And let me just show you what exactly we use for this. And this is just a different pan here. It's just one that's been sitting out for a year. We did not use it this year, but it's just sand and pine bark, and it is all we use. So let's run down to the bulk yard and we're going to get us a load of new sand. All right, guys, this is a place that I call it a bulk yard. I don't know what you call it, but you can get mulch of all kinds, mini nuggets, brown mulch, black mulch, pine mulch, on and on. You can go around this way and get rock of just about any kind, river rock, crush and run, large slag rock, whatever you need. And what I want is a sand pile right back here. So let's go have a look. And what I want right here is just 1 scoop of this, and this, where I buy it, is called masonry sand. It's kind of coarse. It's not real soft, but it's just kind of a regular all-purpose sand. It's not anything special, and you just want to stay away from like bunker sand, which is something like this over here. And what I don't want, at least at this place where I am, is called bunker sand. It's just real fine. It's almost like flour, and it's just not going to drain quite as well as masonry sand or all-purpose sand. Don't worry too much about the name of it. It's going to be called different things at different places. The point is you want something that's got some coarseness to it, that maybe has some tiny little pea gravel in it, or there's slightly larger pieces of sand. So that's really the point of the whole exercise here. Well, all right, guys, we're back here at the house now at the nursery, and I got my trailer full of sand. This is probably, I don't know, 1,500 or 2,000 pounds of sand. I really don't know. Sand is very dense and very heavy. But all that we do to mix this into a useful media for rooting plants in is, there's no specific ratio, so you don't have to worry about that. We just scoop our sand out. I put it in these dish pans, and, you know, I'm going to fill that up at least halfway with sand. 2 scoops of that is more than halfway. And that's fine. It doesn't matter that much. Maybe a little more than I want in there. I just kind of look at it and think, okay, that's probably half to 2/3 full, something like that. And I got a bucket here, and this is just my pine bark that I use for everything. And I'm going to put, you know, I don't know, 25%, 1/3, something like that in there. And I'm just going to mix that up. Now, what that's going to do, it's going to make that dish pan nice and full. Going to mix that in there really good. But what it does is it gives me a full dish pan without it being so heavy. And when I say heavy, I mean it just weighs a lot, because sand is dense and sand is heavy. So I'm going to add a little bit more pine bark there to that just to fill it on up a little bit more. But you don't lose any of your benefits of sand when you do this. So you got moisture retention, a little bit of moisture retention in your sand. You got a little bit of moisture retention in your pine bark, though not a whole heck of a lot. And between the two, when you wet them, get your cuttings in there, it settles down and compacts in there nice and tight so you don't have air pockets. And this just works really well. You know, you're going to take your dish pans and, you know, drill holes in the bottom of them to make sure that they drain. And we leave these sitting outside all year long. They're uncovered. They're left sitting outside in the weather all year. And as far as preparing your pans go, that is completely all that we do to it. Now, before I start making my cuttings, I'm going to take this pan and just soak it real good, and that'll just settle all of that material down in there and kind of make it almost like a block in there. Just settle it down so it's not fluffed up, and it'll just settle it down in there where it's pretty nice and tight. Water will drain out, and then we'll stick our cuttings. So that'll be our next step, is to get those cuttings. All right, guys, we are back over here at our table. Here's my dish pan here with my sand and pine bark, and it looks pine bark heavy because when you completely flood this, some of the pine bark will float to the top, but that's completely fine. And I'm going to go down through here and just poke some holes in this. I've got about 50 or 55 cuttings that I'm going to put in this, because that's how many cuttings I have. And today we're going to do Rheingold arbor vitas. Let me show you a Rheingold arbor vita cutting. That's a Rheingold arbor vita. It's a kind of a yellow golden evergreen arbor vita shrub. It gets kind of about 3 feet tall and wide, just a beautiful little shrub. And this is something that we haven't propagated since we've moved to our new nursery a couple of years ago, but we planted a couple of these out so they could grow out. And this year is the first year they've been big enough to take a bunch of cuttings from. So we are glad to have our Rheingold cuttings to be starting over with again this year. To take the cuttings, all you do is basically just do like you're trimming your hedges. And you take the cuttings, kind of make you a stem on the bottom, and just stick them in. So I just take a stick and just poke holes in here, and I just go through here rather quickly and stick them in. Some of these cuttings are bigger or smaller than the others, and I don't really care. I'm going to use the plant material that I have, and they don't turn out all exactly the same, and it doesn't matter. You know, over time they even out really well, and they'll grow into, 2 years, I'd say. You have to root them this year, and I say this year, I mean it's dormant weather now. We've had hard freezes, and this is all winter work. Not particularly cold today, but these plants are dormant, so they're not going to do a thing until the weather warms up next spring. But the good thing is you can go ahead and start working with these now while you're dormant during winter. And there's a ton of plants that you can propagate like this in the winter. So today we're doing Rheingolds, and I'm not going to do a ton of these Rheingolds. I don't have a ton of plant material to do. I mean, if I had, I don't know, 500 of them or so to do, I would, but I probably only have 100 to do, something like that. So I'm going to split those between 2 pans and be content with that. I just dropped one in there. There we go. And be content with that for this winter, because it's what I have. So you work with what you have. But you can do this, and I do it, with green giants, of course, emerald green arborvitas, any kind of cypress like Murray or Leland or anything like that that's evergreen, cedar type stuff, or junipers of just about any kind work well with this. Anything that's evergreen like this, generally, any kind of evergreen shrub, or you can do this way. But you can also do it with deciduous shrubs like hydrangeas, and I will do some hydrangeas this way. I don't do thousands of them this way. My percentage has not been great, but I think I figured out something last year that will help get my percentage up on those. But it just gives you a head start on next spring's propagation. So, and also during all these weeks and months of winter where your weather's bad and it's just cold and your plants aren't growing, it gives you something really valuable, something really important to do with your time. So there's a lot of reasons to do winter propagation, and it's super effective, and it works really, really, really well. So this is what winter propagation looks like for us. Something I get asked, fairly often, not a ton, but people always want to know about the sand that I use. And as I mentioned before, there's not a certain kind of sand that you have to use. You don't even have to use sand at all. I mean, you can do this, in pure perlite if you wanted. I use sand, and I tell you to use sand because it's readily available. I know just about anybody can get sand, no matter where you live. You can do this in pure sand. I've done a ton of cuttings in pure sand. Again, I just add pine bark to it to make it not weigh as much. just literally so the product is lighter weight for my own benefit. But you can use sand, you can use perlite, you can use your own potting soil to do this with. You just have to be aware that this is being a winter project. You know, your biggest issue is most likely to be too much moisture. So whatever you use, you know, it has to maintain some dampness, but it cannot hold too much water or your cuttings are going to all rot. So that's the mixture you're looking for, and for me, that's sand and that's pine bark. Now this tray is nice and full, and the last thing I'm going to do is just soak it with water to completely settle down all that media, because I've kind of stirred it back up, putting those cuttings in there to settle all of that back down nice and snug. And then I'm going to right over here under my shade house and start putting trays all out in here. There's going to be Rheingold arborvitas, hydrangeas, green giants, emerald greens, Murray cypress, different things. I may try some crepe myrtles this year. I never tried them this way. I may try pink diamond hydrangeas. I've never done them this way, but this is how you do your dappled willows and just all kinds of plants you can do this way. And soaked in, there it sits. The first tray of winter propagation for me this year. I'm excited about this, guys. This will be the first propagation I've done of any kind since probably July. And now we're mid-November. We've had a couple of hard freezes, and this is the process I'm going to continue on November, December, January, February, working on it a little bit at a time. And my goal is to get, I don't know, 3,000 to 5,000 at least plants into propagation this way, because as soon as the weather even starts thinking about warming up in the spring, even late February when we start having some warm days, and then we get cold, and then, you know, it freezes hard in March, but even in those days when it starts warming up, these things start callousing over as cuttings done as hardwood this way. And by the time you get into May and June, they already have an explosion of roots coming off of them, and they get well ahead propagation wise, rooting wise, of where they would be if you do all of them under mist in the summer. So we're obviously going to do them under mist in the summer, and we're going to do them in winter because we want to be propagating a ton of plants in our nursery. So for me, I'm going to start filling up all these dish pans I've got. I've got about 20 right now, and it means I need to make a dollar store, a Walmart run, and get a whole bunch more. And I'm hoping to do somewhere around 50 dish pans of this with this sand that I have here mixed with the bark that I have, and just see how many plants we can get propagated, how many little starts we can get propagated and get started over the winter this year. It's a great wintertime project. Any nursery person needs to know how to do hardwood propagation, and I hope that it's a helpful little tip and little tutorial for you guys today to just show you something really valuable that you can get going this time of year in your nursery, obviously even when it's cold. Well guys, thank y'all for watching today. I love y'all, and we'll see you on the next one.